The fluorescent lights in conference room Delta cast harsh shadows across the mahogany table where 12 of the Navy's most decorated officers sat reviewing quarterly reports. Outside the Pentagon's reinforced windows, Washington, D.C. hummed with its usual political energy, but inside this secure briefing room, the atmosphere crackled with military precision and barely contained tension. Admiral James Richardson adjusted his reading glasses and glanced at the stack of personnel files before him. At 62, he had seen 3 decades of naval service, from the Cold War's final chapters through the complex conflicts of the 21st century. His weathered hands bore the calluses of a man who had climbed through the ranks the hard way, earning every star through blood, sweat, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. The morning's agenda focused on special operations assessments, a topic that always demanded Richardson's full attention. The Navy SEALs, Marine snipers, and other elite units represented the sharp edge of American military power. Their success rates, mission parameters, and operational effectiveness formed the backbone of strategic planning for conflicts that officially didn't exist. Next item. Richardson announced, his gravelly voice commanding immediate attention from the assembled officers. Individual performance reviews for Tier 1 assets. Captain Maria Santos, the briefing officer, shuffled through her digital tablet with practiced efficiency. Sir, we have several outstanding performers to discuss. Lieutenant Commander Hayes completed 17 successful extractions this quarter. Sergeant Major Thompson exceeded all marksmanship benchmarks by 30%. Richardson nodded approvingly. These numbers represented lives saved, missions accomplished, and threats eliminated before they could materialize into larger conflicts. Each statistic told a story of split-second decisions made under impossible pressure, where failure meant death for teammates and potentially thousands of civilians. What about the new additions to the program? He asked, referring to the recent integration of female operatives into previously male-only special operations units. The policy change had generated considerable controversy within military circles, with traditionalists arguing that combat effectiveness would suffer while progressives pushed for full equality in all roles. Captain Santos swiped to a new screen. We have several female operatives who have completed advanced training programs. Most are performing within expected parameters for their experience levels. Most. Richardson's eyebrows raised slightly. In his experience, words like most often concealed the most interesting stories. There is one outlier, sir. Santos hesitated briefly. Petty Officer First Class Sarah Mitchell. She's been with the sniper program for 18 months. Richardson leaned back in his leather chair, intrigued. Outliers in military performance came in 2 varieties: spectacular failures or exceptional successes. Given Santos's tone, he suspected this case fell into the latter category. What makes her noteworthy? Her accuracy ratings are unprecedented, sir. She's completed 47 long-range missions with a success rate that's... Santos paused, double-checking her numbers. Well, it's statistically improbable. Around the table, the other officers exchanged glances. In special operations, where margins of error measured in millimeters could determine mission success or catastrophic failure, statistical improbabilities usually indicated either falsified reports or genuine excellence that defied conventional understanding. Bring her in, Richardson decided. I want to meet this statistical improbability. 20 minutes later, Petty Officer Sarah Mitchell stood at attention outside Conference Room Delta, her mind racing through potential reasons for this summons. At 28, she had learned to expect the unexpected in military life, but being called to brief senior leadership represented uncharted territory. Mitchell checked her uniform one final time in the hallway's polished surface. Her dress blues were immaculate, ribbons and insignia positioned with mathematical precision. She had earned each decoration through performance that spoke louder than words, but she knew that in this environment, perception mattered almost as much as reality. The conference room door opened, revealing Captain Santos with an expression that provided no hints about the nature of this meeting. Petty Officer Mitchell, please come in. As Mitchell entered the room, she immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. The assembled brass represented decades of combined military experience and enough authority to reshape entire naval operations with a single decision. She snapped to attention with practiced precision. At ease, Admiral Richardson said, gesturing toward an empty chair. Please sit down. Mitchell remained standing. If it's all the same to you, sir, I prefer to stand. Richardson smiled slightly. He appreciated personnel who understood protocol while maintaining personal dignity. Very well. I've been reviewing your performance metrics, Petty Officer. Quite impressive. Thank you, sir. 47 missions completed successfully. 0 failures. 0 complications. Richardson consulted his notes. Your instructors describe your marksmanship as otherworldly. Your mission commanders use words like surgical and impossible to describe your shot placements. Mitchell remained silent, understanding that senior officers often use statements as questions, waiting for responses that revealed character and mindset. I'm curious about something, Richardson continued, his tone shifting to conversational despite the formal setting. In my experience, snipers develop a certain perspective on their role. They understand the weight of what they do. The room's atmosphere grew heavy. Every officer present understood the psychological burden carried by those who eliminated targets from extreme distances. The isolation, the precision required, and the finality of each successful shot created mental pressures that broke some of the military's finest minds. I've been wondering, Richardson said, leaning forward slightly, about your personal perspective on mission effectiveness. Mitchell sensed the importance of her response. She had grown up in rural Montana, where hunting provided both family sustenance and valuable life lessons about responsibility and consequence. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, had taught her that taking a life, whether animal or human, demanded respect for the weight of that action. Sir, I believe that precision and purpose must align perfectly, she replied. Every shot represents a decision that cannot be undone. Richardson nodded approvingly. This demonstrated the kind of thoughtful approach he expected from elite operatives. Tell me about your most challenging mission. Mitchell's mind immediately went to a classified operation in Southeast Asia, where she had provided overwatch for a hostage rescue mission. The shot she made that day had required calculating for wind speeds, humidity, target movement, and the psychological pressure of knowing that failure meant the deaths of 3 American contractors. Operation Nightfall, sir. 1,800-meter shot in variable wind conditions. The target had been holding hostages for 6 days. Intelligence suggested he was becoming increasingly unstable. What made it challenging? The angle, sir. I had to account for a 12-degree downward trajectory while compensating for crosswinds that shifted every few minutes. The hostages were positioned in such a way that any error would have resulted in civilian casualties. Richardson found himself genuinely impressed. 1,800 meters represented an extraordinary distance for a precision shot under ideal conditions. Adding environmental complications and the pressure of civilian lives hanging in the balance elevated this to the realm of exceptional skill. How long did you take to line up the shot? 47 minutes, sir. I had to wait for a specific wind pattern while ensuring the target remained in a position that minimized risk to the hostages. And the result? Clean elimination, sir. Hostages recovered safely with no injuries. The room fell silent as the assembled officers absorbed this information. 47 minutes of maintaining perfect stillness while calculating countless variables demonstrated a level of mental discipline that exceeded standard training parameters. Admiral Richardson found himself curious about this young woman's background. Her file indicated rural origins and extensive hunting experience, but exceptional military performance often stemmed from psychological factors that couldn't be measured through standard assessments. Where did you learn to shoot like that? He asked. My father, sir. He taught me that shooting wasn't about the gun or the target. It was about understanding yourself well enough to control every variable within your influence. Richardson appreciated this philosophy. Too many young soldiers focused on equipment and technique while ignoring the mental aspects of marksmanship. The best snipers he had known possessed an almost mystical understanding of their own capabilities and limitations. Your father was military? Marine Corps, sir. 2 tours in Vietnam as a reconnaissance specialist. This explained much about Mitchell's approach to duty and precision. Children of combat veterans often inherited both technical skills and psychological frameworks that prepared them for military excellence. Richardson made a mental note to review her family military history more thoroughly. 47 successful missions, he mused aloud. That's an exceptional record for someone with your level of experience. Yes, sir. Richardson studied Mitchell's expression, noting the absence of pride or boastfulness in her demeanor. She reported her achievements with the same matter-of-fact tone she might use to discuss weather conditions. This suggested either remarkable humility or a psychological distance from her actions that concerned him. "Do you ever think about the targets?" he asked quietly. The question hung in the air like smoke. Every sniper eventually confronted the human cost of their precision. Some developed elaborate justification systems. Others compartmentalized their emotions, and a few rare individuals found healthy ways to process the psychological burden of their responsibilities. Mitchell considered her response carefully. "I think about the people I protected, sir. The hostages who went home to their families. The soldiers who completed their missions because threats were neutralized. The civilians who never knew they were in danger because problems were solved from a distance." Richardson found this answer both impressive and slightly evasive. While it demonstrated appropriate focus on mission success and civilian protection, it didn't directly address the psychological impact of taking lives. He decided to probe deeper. "That's a commendable perspective," he said. "But I'm asking specifically about the individual targets. Do you ever wonder about their families, their motivations, their backgrounds?" Mitchell's expression remained steady, but Richardson noticed a subtle shift in her posture. This question touched on something she had clearly considered extensively. "Sir, I've learned that thinking too much about targets as individuals can compromise mission effectiveness. My job is to eliminate specific threats based on intelligence assessments and command decisions. Personal speculation about target backgrounds would introduce emotional variables that could affect shot placement." This response impressed Richardson with its professional clarity while raising questions about its emotional sustainability. The most effective snipers walked a fine line between necessary psychological distance and potentially dangerous dehumanization. "Have you ever missed?" he asked suddenly. "No, sir." The simple answer reverberated through the room like a gunshot. 0 misses across 47 missions represented performance that bordered on the impossible. Even the most skilled marksmen experienced occasional failures due to equipment malfunctions, unexpected environmental changes, or simple human error. Richardson leaned forward, his interest now fully engaged. "Never? Not even close calls or marginal shots that still achieved objectives?" "Every shot was placed exactly where I intended it, sir." The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. This level of confidence either indicated dangerous overconfidence or abilities that transcended normal human limitations. He had met exceptional soldiers throughout his career, but none who claimed perfect performance across such an extensive operational history. "Petty Officer Mitchell," he said slowly, "I need to ask you something directly, and I want you to answer with complete honesty." "Yes, sir." Richardson glanced around the room, noting the intense attention his fellow officers were paying to this conversation. What had begun as a routine performance review was evolving into something unprecedented. "How many confirmed kills do you have?" The question that would change everything hung in the air, waiting for an answer that none of the assembled officers could possibly anticipate. The silence that followed Admiral Richardson's question stretched for exactly 17 seconds, though it felt like hours to everyone present. Petty Officer Mitchell's expression remained perfectly composed, but something flickered behind her eyes that suggested she understood the weight of what she was about to reveal. "Sir," Mitchell began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment, "my confirmed kill count is 412. The number hit the room like a physical force. Captain Santos dropped her stylus, the small metallic ping echoing in the sudden stillness. Admiral Richardson's practice poker face cracked slightly, revealing genuine shock that decades of military experience couldn't conceal. Around the table, senior officers exchanged glances that mixed disbelief with dawning realization that they were witnessing something unprecedented. 412, Richardson repeated slowly, as if testing the words for some hidden meaning. You're absolutely certain of that number? Yes, sir. I maintain detailed records of every confirmed elimination. Admiral Richardson's mind raced through the implications. The highest confirmed kill count in modern military history belonged to a legendary sniper, with over 300 confirmed kills accumulated across multiple deployments spanning nearly 2 decades. Mitchell's number didn't just exceed that record. It obliterated it, suggesting either systematic falsification or capabilities that defied conventional understanding. 18 months of active duty, Richardson calculated aloud. That's approximately 23 kills per month, assuming continuous deployment. My deployment schedule has been intensive, sir, Mitchell replied matter-of-factly. Operations have required rapid response to multiple high-value targets across various theaters of engagement. Captain Santos found her voice first among the assembled officers. Petty officer, are you including assists or probable kills in that count? Sometimes field reports can be unclear about. Confirmed kills only, ma'am, Mitchell interrupted politely but firmly. Each elimination was verified through multiple intelligence sources and direct observation. I maintain photographic documentation when operationally feasible. The room erupted in barely suppressed murmurs as officers processed this information. Photographic documentation of sniper kills was rare due to operational security concerns, but it represented the gold standard for confirmation accuracy. If Mitchell possessed such evidence, her claims carried weight that transcended typical battlefield boasting. Admiral Richardson raised his hand, instantly restoring silence. His expression had shifted from curious interest to intense scrutiny as he grappled with the extraordinary claims he was hearing. Petty Officer Mitchell, I need you to understand something clearly, he said with measured authority. The number you've provided exceeds the established records for sniper effectiveness by a significant margin. Such claims require substantial verification. I understand completely, sir. Can you provide specific examples of these engagements? Mitchell nodded without hesitation. Operation Desert Phoenix, 17 confirmed kills across 3 days. High-value targets attempting to coordinate a terrorist cell in urban environment. Average engagement distance was 1,100 meters. Richardson consulted his briefing materials quickly. Operation Desert Phoenix had indeed occurred 6 months earlier, targeting a sophisticated terrorist network that had threatened multiple civilian populations. The mission's success had been attributed to coordinated special operations, but specific individual achievements had remained classified. Continue, he ordered. Operation Silent Thunder, 31 confirmed kills over 2 weeks. Counter-sniper operations protecting humanitarian convoy routes. Engagement distances ranged from 800 to 2,200 meters. Captain Santos was frantically accessing her tablet, cross-referencing Mitchell's claims with official operational reports. Her expression grew increasingly amazed as she found corroborating evidence for each mission mentioned. Operation Broken Arrow, Mitchell continued, 47 confirmed kills across 4 days. Elimination of an entire enemy sniper school that had been training operatives for attacks on American installations. Maximum engagement distance was 2,600 meters. The number 2,600 meters caused several officers to inhale sharply. Such distances push the absolute limits of sniper capability, requiring not just exceptional marksmanship, but intimate understanding of ballistics, environmental conditions, and equipment capabilities that took years to develop. Admiral Richardson found himself facing a dilemma that transcended normal military assessment procedures. If Mitchell's claims were accurate, she represented a strategic asset unlike anything in modern military history. If they were fabricated, she was either delusional or engaged in elaborate deception that would require immediate intervention. Petty officer, he said carefully, I want you to walk me through the mechanics of a 2,600-meter shot. Help me understand how such precision is achievable. Mitchell's demeanor shifted slightly, revealing the first hint of enthusiasm she had displayed during the entire briefing. For the first time, she seemed to be discussing something that genuinely engaged her passion rather than simply reporting facts. At that distance, sir, traditional ballistic calculations become insufficient. You have to account for the Coriolis effect caused by Earth's rotation, which can deflect the projectile several inches depending on direction of fire. Air density variations at different altitudes along the bullet's trajectory require constant recalculation. Richardson nodded, recognizing that Mitchell was demonstrating sophisticated understanding of advanced ballistics theory that typically required extensive, specialized education. Temperature gradients become critical, she continued. A 5-degree difference in air temperature between the firing position and target area can affect bullet velocity enough to miss a human-sized target entirely. Wind patterns must be mapped at multiple altitudes, because crosswinds at ground level might be completely different from conditions at the projectile's maximum trajectory height. The technical precision of Mitchell's explanation impressed everyone present. These weren't concepts learned through casual study or basic sniper training. They represented advanced theoretical knowledge typically reserved for specialized research and development programs. What about equipment? Richardson asked. Standard issue sniper rifles aren't designed for such extreme ranges. Custom modifications, sir. Enhanced barrel length, precision machine components, specialized ammunition with modified grain weights, and powder charges. The scope requires custom ranging systems that can account for atmospheric conditions automatically. Captain Santos looked up from her tablet with an expression of growing amazement. Sir, I'm finding verification for these claims in classified operational reports. The tactical assessments describe precisely the kinds of long-range eliminations Petty Officer Mitchell is describing. Admiral Richardson felt the foundation of his understanding shifting beneath him. Throughout his career, he had prided himself on recognizing exceptional talent and understanding the limits of human capability. Mitchell's performance appeared to transcend those limits entirely. Tell me about your training background, he ordered. Who taught you these advanced techniques? My formal military training was standard sniper school, sir. But I've always been able to see patterns that others miss. Distance calculations, wind compensation, target movement prediction. These feel intuitive rather than calculated. The word intuitive hung in the air like a challenge to conventional military doctrine. Sniper effectiveness was supposed to result from rigorous training, systematic practice, and careful adherence to established procedures. Intuitive shooting suggested abilities that couldn't be taught or replicated through standard methods. Richardson decided to test Mitchell's claims with a question that would reveal either genuine expertise or fabricated knowledge. Describe the most challenging shot you've made in terms of technical difficulty, not just distance. Mitchell considered the question for several seconds, clearly reviewing multiple options before selecting her response. Operation Ghost Walk, 14 months ago. Target was moving in a vehicle traveling at approximately 45 miles per hour along a mountain road. Engagement distance was 1,800 meters, but the complexity came from the elevation changes. Explain. The target vehicle was descending a winding road while I was positioned on a ridge approximately 800 feet above the road's elevation. The shot required calculating not just lead time for the moving target, but trajectory compensation for the steep downward angle and precise timing to account for the vehicle's position when the bullet arrived. Richardson's eyes widened slightly. Moving target shots at extreme distances with significant elevation differences represented some of the most challenging scenarios in sniper doctrine. Successfully completing such a shot required split-second timing and calculations that pushed human capability to its absolute limits. How long did you have to plan the shot? Approximately 3 minutes, sir. Intelligence indicated the target would only be vulnerable during his transit through that specific section of road. 3 minutes, Richardson repeated, amazed. Most snipers would require significantly longer to plan such a complex shot, if they were willing to attempt it at all. The margin for error was so small that failure was statistically more likely than success. What was the outcome? Clean elimination, sir. Vehicle crashed, but no collateral damage to other occupants or civilian traffic. Captain Santos had been furiously researching while Mitchell spoke. Sir, she interrupted, Operation Ghost Walk is confirmed. The target was a high-value terrorist leader whose elimination disrupted an entire network of planned attacks. The operational report describes the shot as tactically impossible, but strategically essential. Admiral Richardson leaned back in his chair, processing information that challenged fundamental assumptions about human capability and military effectiveness. If Mitchell's claims were accurate, she represented not just an exceptional soldier, but a strategic asset that could reshape how special operations were planned and executed. Petty Officer Mitchell, he said slowly, I need to understand something about your psychological state. Taking lives, even enemy combatants, creates mental stress that accumulates over time. 412 confirmed kills represents a psychological burden that would overwhelm most individuals. Mitchell's expression remained steady, but Richardson noticed a subtle tension around her eyes that suggested this topic required careful consideration. Sir, I've developed coping mechanisms that allow me to maintain operational effectiveness while processing the emotional aspects of my duties. Such as, I focus on the strategic outcomes rather than individual eliminations. Each target eliminated represents threats neutralized, American lives protected, and missions accomplished. I maintain detailed records not just of kills, but of lives saved through successful operations. Richardson found this approach both psychologically sophisticated and potentially concerning. While focusing on positive outcomes was a healthy coping mechanism, the clinical precision with which Mitchell discussed her actions suggested an emotional distance that bordered on dissociation. Do you ever experience nightmares, flashbacks, or other symptoms associated with combat stress? No, sir. My sleep patterns remain normal, and I haven't experienced any psychological symptoms that would affect operational readiness. This answer troubled Richardson more than he cared to admit. Some psychological impact from extreme combat exposure was normal and even healthy. Its absence could indicate either remarkable mental resilience or dangerous psychological suppression that might manifest in unexpected ways. Have you undergone psychological evaluation recently? Standard assessments every 6 months, sir. All results have been within normal parameters for special operations personnel. Captain Santos looked up from her research with an expression of concern. Sir, I'm finding some irregularities in the documentation patterns. The individual mission reports confirm Petty Officer Mitchell's claims, but the aggregate analysis doesn't reflect the full scope of her achievements. Richardson's attention sharpened immediately. Irregularities in military documentation often indicated either administrative errors or deliberate concealment of sensitive information. What kind of irregularities? Her individual performance appears to have been compartmentalized across multiple classification levels. Most officers would only have access to partial information about her operational history. This revelation added another layer of complexity to an already unprecedented situation. If Mitchell's achievements had been deliberately obscured through compartmentalized reporting, it suggested that senior leadership was already aware of her exceptional capabilities, but had chosen to conceal them for unknown reasons. Admiral Richardson realized that he was no longer conducting a routine performance review. He was uncovering a story that could have profound implications for military strategy, operational doctrine, and his own understanding of human capability under extreme circumstances. Admiral Richardson's weathered hands trembled almost imperceptibly as he reached for his secure phone. The revelation that Mitchell's operational history had been deliberately compartmentalized suggested levels of classification that exceeded his current clearance, a reality that both intrigued and concerned him deeply. Captain Santos, he said without taking his eyes off Mitchell, I need you to contact Intelligence Division immediately. Tell them we require a comprehensive review of all classified operations involving Petty Officer Mitchell. Sir, Santos replied hesitantly, some of those files might require whatever clearance is necessary. Richardson interrupted. I'll take full responsibility for the request. Mitchell remained at attention throughout this exchange, her expression revealing nothing about her thoughts regarding the sudden escalation of scrutiny. Richardson found her composure remarkable given that her career and possibly her freedom now hung in the balance of what would certainly be an intensive investigation. Petty Officer Mitchell, Richardson said, turning his attention back to her, I'm going to ask you some questions that might seem unusual. I need you to answer them with complete honesty. understanding that your responses will be verified through multiple intelligence sources. Yes, sir. Have you ever been contacted by foreign intelligence services? No, sir. Have you ever been offered compensation or incentives for information about American military operations? No, sir. Richardson nodded, recognizing these as standard counterintelligence questions, but understanding their critical importance given the exceptional nature of Mitchell's claimed achievements. Have you ever operated without direct authorization from your commanding officers? Mitchell paused for the first time during the entire briefing, her hesitation lasting just long enough to suggest that this question touched on something significant. Sir, there have been situations where tactical decisions required immediate action without time for formal authorization requests. Elaborate. During Operation Silent Thunder, I identified threats that weren't part of the original mission parameters. Enemy snipers had positioned themselves to target the humanitarian convoy, but they weren't on the approved target list. Richardson leaned forward intently. Unauthorized engagements, even against legitimate military targets, represented serious breaches of operational protocol that could result in court-martial proceedings. What action did you take? I eliminated 17 targets that posed imminent threats to American personnel and civilian populations. I documented each engagement and reported them through proper channels immediately following mission completion. The room fell silent as officers absorbed the implications. 17 unauthorized kills represented either exceptional tactical judgment or serious insubordination, depending on perspective and outcome verification. Captain Santos had been working frantically on her tablet throughout this exchange. Sir, she interrupted urgently, I'm finding corroborating evidence for those unauthorized engagements. Intelligence reports confirm that a sophisticated enemy sniper network had been established along the convoy routes. Mission success was attributed to unexpected tactical advantages in the official documentation. Richardson felt pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to align. If Mitchell had indeed identified and neutralized threats that formal intelligence had missed, it suggested situational awareness and tactical decision-making capabilities that exceeded standard training parameters. How did you identify these threats before official intelligence sources? He asked. Mitchell's expression shifted slightly, revealing what might have been the first hint of uncertainty she had displayed during the entire briefing. Sir, I see patterns in terrain and enemy behavior that others seem to miss. Sniper positioning follows predictable logic based on sight lines, escape routes, and tactical advantages. Once you understand the patterns, identifying likely positions becomes straightforward. These aren't skills taught in standard sniper training, Richardson observed. No, sir. They're abilities I've developed through experience and natural aptitude. Admiral Richardson found himself confronting a fundamental question about the nature of military excellence. Throughout his career, he had witnessed exceptional performance that resulted from superior training, dedication, and experience. Mitchell's capabilities appeared to transcend these conventional sources, suggesting either innate abilities that defied normal human limitations or training experiences that weren't reflected in her official records. Tell me about your childhood, he ordered. Specifically, any experiences that might have contributed to your current skill set. Mitchell seemed surprised by this shift in questioning, but she responded without hesitation. I grew up on a ranch in Montana, sir. My father was a Marine veteran who taught me to hunt from an early age. By the time I was 12, I was providing meat for our family through precision shooting at distances that most adults couldn't manage. What distances? Consistently accurate shots at 600 yards by age 14, sir. My father said I had the gift, but he also emphasized that natural ability meant nothing without discipline and respect for the responsibility of taking life. Richardson nodded approvingly. The moral framework Mitchell described suggested healthy psychological development despite exceptional capabilities. Her father's emphasis on responsibility and consequence provided important context for her current approach to military duties. Did you compete in shooting sports? Local competitions only, sir. My father preferred that I not draw attention to my abilities. He said exceptional skills could make someone a target for the wrong kind of interest. This comment struck Richardson as particularly prescient given the current circumstances. Exceptional military capabilities did indeed attract attention from various sources, not all of them benevolent. Captain Santos looked up from her research with an expression of growing amazement. "Sir, I'm finding references to Petty Officer Mitchell in classified files that predate her military service." Richardson's attention snapped to Santos immediately. Pre-service intelligence files suggested either security concerns or recruitment efforts that began before Mitchell's official enlistment. Explain. There are notes in her recruitment file indicating that she was specifically sought out for special operations training based on recommendations from unidentified sources. The file suggests she was identified as a high-value recruit before she ever contacted military recruiters. This revelation added another layer of complexity to Mitchell's story. Targeted recruitment for special operations was extremely rare and typically reserved for individuals with proven track records in related fields or exceptional demonstrated abilities. Petty Officer Mitchell, Richardson said carefully, "Were you ever contacted by military personnel before your official enlistment?" "Yes, sir. A Marine recruiter contacted me approximately 6 months before I decided to enlist. He suggested that my skills might be valuable to special operations units." "Did he explain how he had learned about your abilities?" "He mentioned that he had heard about my performance in local shooting competitions, sir. But he knew details about my shooting that hadn't been publicly discussed." Richardson exchanged glances with his fellow officers, all of whom recognized the implications of this information. Military recruiters rarely possessed detailed intelligence about civilian shooting capabilities unless they were specifically seeking individuals for classified programs. "What convinced you to enlist?" The recruiter explained that my skills could be used to protect American lives and interests. He described scenarios where precision shooting could prevent larger conflicts and save countless civilian casualties. The idealistic tone of Mitchell's response suggested genuine patriotic motivation rather than mercenary interests or desire for personal glory. Richardson found this encouraging given the extraordinary capabilities they were discussing. "Has anyone ever approached you about your military service since your enlistment?" Mitchell hesitated again, her expression suggesting internal debate about the appropriate level of disclosure. "Sir, there have been informal conversations with personnel who aren't part of my direct chain of command. People who seem to know more about my operational history than should be possible through normal channels." Richardson felt a chill run down his spine. Unauthorized access to classified operational information represented serious security concerns that extended far beyond individual performance assessment. "What kind of conversations?" "Questions about my techniques, my psychological state, my family background. Always presented as routine follow-up, but the level of detail suggested extensive research into my personal history." Captain Santos was typing rapidly, presumably requesting additional security reviews based on Mitchell's revelations. The combination of exceptional performance, compartmentalized records, and unauthorized information access suggested a situation that required immediate high-level attention. "Petty Officer Mitchell," Richardson said slowly, "I want you to think very carefully before answering this next question. Have you ever been asked to participate in operations or activities that weren't officially sanctioned through normal military channels?" The weight of this question settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Involvement in unsanctioned operations could indicate everything from beneficial special projects to dangerous rogue activities that violated both military law and international agreements. Mitchell's pause extended for nearly 30 seconds before she responded. "Sir, I've received training opportunities that weren't reflected in my official education records. Advanced techniques and equipment familiarization that exceeded standard sniper program parameters." Describe these training opportunities. "Extended range techniques, experimental ammunition, advanced camouflage, and concealment methods. Training exercises that simulated scenarios far more complex than anything in standard operational doctrine." Richardson recognized that Mitchell was describing the kind of advanced training typically reserved for the most elite special operations units, programs that officially didn't exist and required security clearances that exceeded those held by most general officers. "Who provided this training?" Instructors who weren't part of the regular military education system, sir. Civilians with extensive tactical knowledge and access to equipment I'd never seen before. The revelation that civilian contractors with advanced tactical knowledge had been providing specialized training to Mitchell suggested either beneficial government programs operating above normal classification levels or potentially dangerous private sector involvement in military operations. Did these instructors identify themselves or their organizational affiliations? No, sir. They presented themselves as specialists brought in to enhance the capabilities of high-performing personnel, but they never provided specific credentials or organizational details. Admiral Richardson found himself confronting the possibility that Mitchell's extraordinary capabilities had developed through programs that operated outside normal military oversight. While such programs sometimes produced exceptional results, they also carried risks that could compromise both individual personnel and broader strategic objectives. Captain Santos interrupted the questioning with urgent information. Sir, I'm receiving reports that several other personnel with similar performance profiles have been identified across different military branches. Intelligence Division is recommending immediate security review of all related programs. Richardson realized that Mitchell might represent not an isolated anomaly, but part of a larger pattern of exceptional military performance that had somehow escaped normal oversight and documentation. The implications for military strategy, operational security, and personnel management could be profound. Petty Officer Mitchell, he said with measured authority, you're going to be temporarily reassigned to a special review process while we verify the information you've provided today. This isn't disciplinary action, but we need to understand the full scope of your operational history and training background. I understand, sir. Is there anything else you think we should know about your service or capabilities? Mitchell considered the question carefully before responding with words that would haunt Admiral Richardson for months to come. Sir, I believe there are others like me serving in various capacities throughout the military. We've been trained to operate independently and maintain operational security, but recent events suggest that our activities might have created unintended consequences that require senior leadership attention. The room fell silent as the assembled officers absorbed the implication that Mitchell might be part of a larger group of extraordinary personnel whose activities had remained hidden from normal military oversight. Richardson understood that what had begun as a routine performance review had evolved into a discovery that could reshape his understanding of modern military capabilities and the hidden structures that guided American special operations. The emergency briefing room in the Pentagon's most secure section had been hastily configured for a crisis session that Admiral Richardson never could have anticipated 48 hours earlier. Banks of monitors displayed classified files, personnel records, and operational data that painted a picture of military activities operating far beyond normal oversight channels. General Patricia Hayes, the Defense Intelligence Agency's deputy director, stood before a wall-mounted display showing a map of global military installations marked with red indicators. Each red dot represented personnel with performance profiles similar to Petty Officer Mitchell's extraordinary capabilities. Gentlemen, General Hayes began, her voice carrying the weight of classified revelations that would reshape military understanding. What Petty Officer Mitchell revealed yesterday was just the beginning. Our investigation has uncovered a network of approximately 47 military personnel across all service branches whose capabilities exceed normal human parameters by significant margins. Admiral Richardson studied the global display with growing amazement. The red indicators were scattered across 6 continents, suggesting a program of unprecedented scope and coordination that had somehow operated outside normal military command structures. How long has this been happening? He asked. Based on recruitment patterns and operational histories, approximately 15 years, Hayes replied. The program appears to have begun as an experimental enhancement of existing special operations training, but it evolved into something far more sophisticated than anyone initially realized. Captain Santos, who had been working nonstop since Mitchell's revelations, consulted her tablet before speaking. Sir, we've identified common elements in the backgrounds of these exceptional personnel. rural upbringing, early exposure to precision shooting, family military history, and psychological profiles indicating high stress tolerance and moral certainty. Richardson nodded, recognizing that these characteristics would indeed produce individuals well-suited for advanced special operations training. What surprised him was the systematic nature of their identification and recruitment. "Tell me about the recruitment process," he ordered. "This is where it gets complicated," Hayes replied, manipulating the display to show recruitment timelines. These individuals weren't recruited through normal military channels. They were identified through civilian activities, hunting competitions, marksmanship clubs, ROTC programs, and approached by recruiters who possessed unusually detailed information about their capabilities. Who authorized this recruitment program? Hayes exchanged glances with other intelligence officers present before responding. "That's the problem, sir. We can't find authorization records for systematic recruitment of this scope. The paper trail suggests individual recruitment decisions made by local commanders, but the coordination patterns indicate centralized planning." Admiral Richardson felt a familiar chill that he associated with discovering military activities that operated in gray areas of legal and ethical authority. Throughout his career, he had learned to recognize situations where beneficial outcomes might have been achieved through questionable methods. "What about training records?" he asked. Mitchell mentioned advanced instruction by civilian contractors. "We've traced some of these contractors," Hayes replied, displaying a new set of files. "They represent a mix of former military personnel, private security specialists, and individuals with backgrounds that can't be fully verified through normal intelligence channels." Richardson studied the contractor profiles, noting the high level of tactical expertise and security clearances that would be required for the kind of advanced training Mitchell had described. "Are we dealing with a rogue operation or an authorized program that was deliberately concealed?" "The evidence suggests both," Hayes admitted. "Initial program development appears to have been authorized at high levels, but subsequent expansion exceeded original parameters without proper oversight." Captain Santos looked up from her research with an expression of concern. "Sir, we're finding operational patterns that suggest these enhanced personnel have been deployed in missions that weren't reflected in official records. Successful operations attributed to luck or superior intelligence may have actually resulted from capabilities we didn't know we possessed." Richardson realized that the implications extended far beyond individual personnel management. If exceptional operators had been conducting unauthorized missions, the strategic effects could have influenced geopolitical outcomes in ways that senior leadership never understood. "Give me specific examples," he ordered. Hayes manipulated the display to show mission timelines correlated with personnel deployments. Operation Desert Storm, the elimination of a terrorist cell that had been planning attacks on American embassies. Official records credit intelligence work and coordinated special operations, but deployment records show that Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was positioned in the operational area with equipment that wasn't part of his official mission parameters. What kind of equipment? Experimental long-range rifle systems and ammunition that weren't available through normal supply channels. Post-mission analysis indicated shot placements that exceeded the capabilities of standard military equipment. Admiral Richardson found himself grappling with the realization that American military successes he had celebrated might have resulted from hidden capabilities and unauthorized operations that violated established protocols and oversight procedures. How many operations are we talking about? Preliminary analysis suggests at least 300 missions over the past decade, where these enhanced personnel may have provided decisive tactical advantages that weren't reflected in official documentation. The scope of hidden activity represented a fundamental challenge to Richardson's understanding of military command and control. 300 unreported or misreported operations suggested systematic concealment that required coordination at multiple levels. "What about command authority?" he asked. "Who was directing these operations?" Hayes hesitated before responding, clearly uncomfortable with the implications of her findings. "This is where the investigation becomes particularly concerning, sir. Command directives appear to have come through channels that bypass normal military hierarchy." "Meaning what specifically?" "Orders transmitted through civilian contractors, communications systems outside military networks, and authorization codes that can't be traced through standard command structures. Richardson felt the foundation of his military worldview shifting beneath him. The idea that American personnel might be receiving orders through unofficial channels represented either a massive security breach or a shadow command structure that operated outside constitutional oversight. "Are we dealing with foreign influence?" he asked, voicing his worst fears. "We don't think so," Hayes replied. The operational outcomes consistently favored American strategic interests. These enhanced personnel achieved mission success rates that exceeded normal parameters while maintaining absolute loyalty to American objectives. Captain Santos interrupted with urgent information. "Sir, we're receiving reports that several of these personnel have requested emergency meetings with senior leadership. They appear to be concerned about recent events and want to provide information voluntarily." Richardson recognized this as a critical development. If the enhanced personnel were voluntarily coming forward, it suggested either guilty consciences or awareness of problems that required immediate attention. What kind of concerns? According to preliminary contacts, they're worried about mission parameters that have been expanding beyond their original understanding. Some are questioning the legal authority for recent operations. This revelation troubled Richardson deeply. If exceptionally capable personnel were questioning their mission authority, it suggested that the hidden program might be evolving in directions that exceeded acceptable legal and ethical boundaries. "Schedule these meetings immediately," he ordered. "I want to hear directly from these people about what they've been doing and who's been directing their activities." General Hayes nodded, but her expression suggested additional complications. "Sir, there's one more factor we need to discuss. Several of these enhanced personnel have gone missing in recent weeks." "Missing how?" "They failed to report for scheduled duties, and their last known locations can't be verified." Initially attributed to operational security requirements, but the pattern suggests either voluntary disappearance or external intervention. Admiral Richardson realized that the situation was evolving beyond investigation into active crisis management. If enhanced personnel were disappearing, it could indicate either recognition that their activities were under scrutiny or external forces attempting to exploit or eliminate valuable assets. "Have there been any communication attempts from missing personnel?" "One message received through encrypted channels," Hayes replied, displaying a brief text communication. It warned that the program has been compromised and advised trust no one outside direct chain. Richardson studied the message, recognizing the cryptic nature that would be expected from personnel trained in operational security. The reference to program compromise suggested awareness of the current investigation, while the warning about trust implied perception of threat from unknown sources. "What's our assessment of the threat level?" he asked. "Unknown, but potentially significant," Hayes admitted. If these enhanced personnel represent strategic assets that foreign intelligence services want to acquire or eliminate, their disappearance could indicate active intelligence operations against American capabilities. Captain Santos looked up with new information. "Sir, we've identified the source of the warning message. It came from Sergeant Major Thompson, one of the personnel scheduled to meet with us tomorrow." "What's Thompson's background?" "Similar profile to Petty Officer Mitchell, but with focus on urban operations and close-quarters combat. His performance record indicates capabilities that exceed standard special operations parameters by significant margins." Richardson realized that Thompson might possess information that could clarify the nature of the hidden program and the reasons for recent personnel disappearances. The meeting would represent a critical opportunity to understand the full scope of activities that had operated outside normal military oversight. "I want maximum security for tomorrow's meeting," he ordered. "If external forces are targeting these personnel, we can't afford to lose potential sources of information." General Hayes nodded grimly. "Already in place, sir. But we should understand that whoever developed this program possessed resources and capabilities that might exceed our security measures." Admiral Richardson found himself contemplating the disturbing possibility that American military capabilities had been enhanced through programs that operated outside constitutional authority and legal oversight. While the tactical benefits were undeniable, the strategic implications raised fundamental questions about civilian control of military forces and the balance between national security and democratic governance. There's one more thing, Hayes added quietly. Analysis of global conflict outcomes over the past decade suggests that American strategic successes may have depended more heavily on these hidden capabilities than anyone realized. If we've lost control of the program, or if external forces have compromised it, the implications for future operations could be profound. Richardson understood that what had begun as curiosity about exceptional individual performance had evolved into a national security crisis that could reshape American military strategy and potentially threaten the constitutional principles that govern military authority. The answers he sought about Petty Officer Mitchell had led to questions that challenged the very foundation of military command and democratic oversight. The secure meeting room deep beneath the Pentagon had been transformed into a command center that buzzed with controlled urgency. Admiral Richardson sat across from Sergeant Major David Thompson, whose weathered face and alert eyes suggested decades of combat experience compressed into someone barely 30 years old. Thompson had appeared for his scheduled meeting despite warnings about personnel disappearances, carrying a sealed envelope that he placed carefully on the table between them. His manner conveyed both respect for military authority and wariness that suggested he understood the gravity of recent developments. "Sergeant Major," Richardson began, "I need you to tell me everything you know about the program that enhanced your capabilities and those of personnel like Petty Officer Mitchell." Thompson studied Richardson's expression for several seconds before responding. "Sir, with respect, the program didn't enhance our capabilities. It identified capabilities we already possessed and taught us how to use them without getting killed or compromising our missions." This distinction surprised Richardson, suggesting that the extraordinary performance he had witnessed resulted from natural abilities rather than artificial enhancement through training or technology. "Explain the difference." "People like Mitchell and myself see patterns that others miss," Thompson replied. "We process spatial relationships, predict behavioral patterns, and calculate complex variables intuitively. The program taught us how to trust these instincts while maintaining operational discipline." Richardson leaned forward intently. "Who developed this training approach?" Thompson glanced at the sealed envelope before continuing. "Dr. Sarah Chun, a cognitive psychologist who had been researching exceptional human performance for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. She theorized that certain individuals possess cognitive capabilities that exceeded normal human parameters, but lacked training to utilize them effectively." "Where is Dr. Chun now?" "That's the problem, sir. 3 weeks ago, she contacted several of us with warnings that the program had been infiltrated by interests that wanted to exploit our capabilities for unauthorized operations." Richardson felt pieces of the puzzle beginning to align in disturbing ways. "What kind of unauthorized operations?" Thompson opened the sealed envelope and withdrew a collection of photographs and documents. "Assassinations disguised as tactical operations, sir. Targets that weren't enemy combatants, but individuals whose elimination served political rather than military objectives." The photographs showed locations and individuals that Richardson didn't recognize, but the professional quality of surveillance and documentation suggested sophisticated intelligence operations that exceeded normal military scope. "Who was directing these operations?" Dr. Chun identified a shadow organization within the defense establishment that had co-opted her research for purposes she never intended, Thompson explained. "They were using personnel like us as deniable assets for operations that violated both military law and international agreements." Admiral Richardson realized that the hidden program had evolved from legitimate research into human potential towards something that threatened the constitutional principles governing American military operations. "What happened to Dr. Chun?" "She's in protective custody, sir. When she tried to expose the unauthorized use of her research, attempts were made on her life. Several of us have been providing security while she compiled evidence about the program's corruption." Thompson spread additional documents across the table, revealing communication records, financial transactions, and operational orders that painted a picture of systematic abuse of exceptional military personnel. "These documents show how our capabilities were being exploited," Thompson continued. "Missions presented as counterterrorism operations were actually eliminations of journalists, whistleblowers, and political figures who threatened certain interests. Richardson studied the evidence with growing horror. If Thompson's claims were accurate, exceptional military personnel had been manipulated into conducting assassinations that violated both legal authority and moral principles. How many personnel were involved in unauthorized operations? Approximately 23 of us received orders through unofficial channels, Thompson replied. Most believed they were conducting legitimate special operations until Dr. Chen's research revealed the true nature of our missions. What about the others in the program? Personnel like Mitchell were kept focused on legitimate military targets, while the rest of us were gradually drawn into more questionable operations. The manipulation was sophisticated enough that most didn't realize they were being used illegally. Admiral Richardson understood that the program's architect had deliberately separated legitimate operations from illegal activities to maintain plausible deniability and prevent personnel from recognizing the full scope of corruption. Why are you coming forward now? Thompson's expression grew grim. Because the shadow organization realized that Dr. Chen's investigation threatened their operations. They began eliminating personnel who might provide evidence about unauthorized activities. The missing personnel, dead, sir, made it look like training accidents or combat casualties, but actually assassinated to prevent them from exposing the program's corruption. Richardson felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that American military personnel were being murdered to conceal illegal operations represented the worst possible outcome of unchecked special access programs. What evidence do you have of these assassinations? Thompson withdrew additional photographs from the envelope. Post-mortem analysis that doesn't match official cause of death reports. Ballistic evidence suggesting professional execution rather than accidental death. Witness testimony from personnel who observed inconsistencies in reported circumstances. The evidence Thompson presented painted a picture of systematic murder designed to conceal illegal activities conducted under the guise of legitimate military operations. Who's behind this shadow organization? Dr. Chen's investigation identified a consortium of defense contractors, intelligence officers, and political figures who saw our capabilities as opportunities to conduct operations that normal oversight would prevent, Thompson explained. Richardson realized that the corruption extended beyond military channels into the civilian defense establishment and potentially into political leadership itself. What's the current threat assessment? Immediate and severe, Thompson replied. The shadow organization knows that their operations have been exposed. They're eliminating evidence and personnel while preparing to dissolve the program and disappear. Admiral Richardson understood that time was running out to prevent further casualties and preserve evidence of illegal activities that threatened both individual personnel and constitutional governance. What do you need from me? Protection for surviving personnel and Dr. Chen while she completes her evidence compilation, Thompson requested. Legal immunity for personnel who participated in unauthorized operations without knowing their true nature. And justice for those who corrupted a legitimate research program into a criminal conspiracy. Richardson recognized that Thompson's requests represented both reasonable protection for victims and necessary accountability for perpetrators of illegal activities. Where is Dr. Chen now? Secure location with protective detail provided by program personnel who remained loyal to constitutional principles, Thompson replied. She's prepared to provide full testimony about the program's development and subsequent corruption. Admiral Richardson realized that Dr. Chen represented the key to understanding both the legitimate aspects of the program and the criminal conspiracy that had exploited exceptional military personnel. I'll arrange immediate protective custody through official channels, he decided. And I'll initiate formal investigation into the unauthorized operations you've described. Thompson nodded appreciatively. Sir, there's one more thing. The shadow organization has been monitoring military communications and may be aware of this meeting. Dr. Chen recommended that any official response be coordinated through channels they can't compromise. Richardson understood that the corruption extended deep enough into defense and intelligence establishments to threaten even high-level communication security. I'll work directly with the Attorney General's office to ensure proper legal authority for investigation and prosecution, he assured Thompson. Thank you, sir. Personnel like Mitchell deserve to know that their exceptional service was honored rather than exploited. Admiral Richardson reflected on the journey from his initial curiosity about Mitchell's extraordinary performance to the discovery of corruption that threatened the very foundations of military integrity and constitutional governance. Sergeant Major, I want you to coordinate with Captain Santos to ensure that all surviving personnel receive proper protection and legal representation. This situation will be resolved according to law and military justice. Thompson gathered the documents from the table, understanding that his evidence would now become part of a formal investigation that could reshape military oversight and accountability. Sir, Dr. Chen asked me to tell you that her research originally aimed to help exceptional individuals serve their country more effectively. She never intended for it to be corrupted into criminal conspiracy. Richardson nodded, recognizing the tragedy of beneficial research being twisted into illegal activities that violated the trust and integrity of exceptional military personnel. 6 weeks later, Admiral Richardson stood in the same conference room where he had first met Petty Officer Mitchell, reviewing the final reports of an investigation that had exposed corruption reaching into the highest levels of defense establishment while vindicating the integrity and exceptional service of personnel who had been exploited by criminal conspiracy. Mitchell had been exonerated of any wrongdoing and reassigned to legitimate special operations where her extraordinary capabilities could serve national security within proper legal and ethical frameworks. The shadow organization had been dismantled, its leaders prosecuted, and its illegal operations terminated. Dr. Chen's research had been placed under proper oversight and continued with safeguards that prevented future exploitation of exceptional military personnel. The legitimate aspects of human potential research would continue to benefit national security while respecting constitutional principles and military law. Admiral Richardson understood that the casual question he had asked about kill counts had ultimately led to the preservation of military integrity and the protection of exceptional personnel whose service deserved honor rather than exploitation. Mitchell's simple answer had indeed sent shockwaves through the Navy, but the ultimate result had strengthened rather than compromised American military capabilities and democratic governance.